In 1977, a team of producers at Passport Records called in a bunch of English and American talent from both their label and others to assemble for one of the great super projects of the era. I am talking about the Intergalactic Touring Band, which had a roster of all-star talent, some emerging, some well-established, including Renaissance vocalist Annie Haslam, who delivers just an angelic performance on the side one closer, Reaching Out.
Lost and alone, and we're drifting forever. Nowhere we are, and we'll never, no, never go home to our earth far away. Just a dot on the screen, never seen, but she's never forgotten.
So she's singing from the point of view of having left planet Earth for good, to settle somewhere else, or to just infinitely remain in space, her and the people she's with. This is recorded with members of the London Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Harry Rabinowitz, orchestral arrangements by Wil Malone, who had been in the pop psych band Orange Bicycle in the late 1960s. Acoustic guitars, Anthony Phillips and Peter Sobel. Drums and percussion, Paul Marchetti. Tympani, Mighty Young Joe Intile, B.E.
Born to be born on the wings of creation. We were the first, now we're 10th generation.
Oh, I love those lyrics. Born to be born on the wings of creation. We were the first, we're the 10th generation.
Our guidance control lies aloof and dismembered. Our ship has forgotten. We have remembered.
What can I say about these key centers other than just lush, romantic, beautiful? I mean, those open cadences, those sustains, harp-laden, swelling strings, beautiful key centers, magic. That that's like the kind of like harp like acoustic like 12-string playing of Anthony Phillips. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, recognizable from like The Geese and the Ghost. I believe this is about trying to communicate with planet Earth and the people that they've left behind. We're reaching out. We miss you. You'll never be forgotten, even if you're just like a dot on the screen. That descent right there is just so beautiful. A little bit of flute in there, I think I heard. Oh God. Reaching Out, sung by Annie Haslam, backed by the London Symphony Orchestra and Anthony Phillips for the all-star project, the Intergalactic Touring Band, released on Passport in 1977. An incredible year with incredible creative energy on both sides of the Atlantic and around the world. I just cannot believe how many of these great projects came out for all these musicians that I love. Like, seeing them do solo stuff, seeing them do band stuff, and to top it all off, they all come together for something like this. It's just, oh my God. And this is just like one song. Like, we've got all that talent on this song. On the song before it, we have David Cousins and Larry Fast, aka Synergy, and Brian Cuomo from Fire Ballet, and David Bedford. And we have other songs. We have Meatloaf on this album. We've got Ben E. King. We've got Rod Argent. Yeah, so much great talent brought under one roof. I just don't know how they did. This was one album in kind of several in this vein, like kind of similar in terms of the way it was assembled to like Mike Batt's projects from around this time, like Tarot Suite, or the Mandela Band's The Eye of Wonder, which had a guest appearance, which had Sad Cafe on it. Well, Sad Cafe, aka Mandela Band, and Justin Hayward, who also appeared around the same time on the Jeff Wayne War of the Worlds album. Yeah, all those are kind of in the same vein. They're all like producer-driven, concept-driven, all-star projects with a bunch of people chipping in, different name singers doing vocals here, lots of like orchestral, lavish ballads. Some of them with standout potential, like this one. This one should have been forwarded. In fact, the best songs on this album. There's a lot of great stuff on this, but the real just top trifecta is in the middle. It starts with Heartbreaker by David Cousins, Dave Cousins of the Strawbs. I'll have to do that one another, and then this, and then First Landing, which the side 2 album opener, which has a vocal on it by Steve Barth, sounding a lot like Roger Hodgson on that track. Oh, and then the final track, Keep or Keep Us, sung by Meatloaf. That's a real great, powerful number. This coming out, I think, a few months before Bat Out of Hell. Yeah, just the golden age of big, grand, lavish production albums. Heck, Alan Parsons' project could kind of correlate to some of this. Just about anything produced by like Roger Powell from the time period. Yeah, I no longer have the vinyl, so I guess it did have like an insert with the lyrics. Unfortunately I couldn't find the lyrics printed anywhere, so I just had to draw from memory and kind of wing it. But I think I called the concept of lyrics pretty accurately, even if some of the plot, which I only kind of half paid attention to back in the day when I was really getting into it. I was more just into the music. The art is quite amusing. It also kind of ties in somewhat to the intergalactic space age movie genre at the time, like Black Hole, I guess. There were some others from that's one that I actually saw in theaters, and I remember. Heck, the reboot of the Star Trek franchise on the big screen around that time, a couple of years later. Star Wars, yeah, a few others I do imagine. I have to check into that more. God, to think that it's been 21 years since I first got into this album. It's now double as old as when I first, and even back then, even back like in 1988, like, no, 1998, back in the late 90s, where I was just spending all my time soaked in the late 70s. And the late 70s just seemed like an escape world. It seemed like an alternate dimension, like some wonderland to me. It was just so different from the late 90s. And I was just like spending all of my hours awake just immersed in like, and like the internet was new at the time. So I was like going on and like filling in all these holes. I was spending hours on end on like the Gibraltar Encyclopedia of Progressive Rock. And I was just finding little references, and it didn't matter what they said about it. It just, all that mattered was the release date, a few things about who was on it, and then I'm sold. I'd be out there. I'd be scouring used vinyl record stores for hours. Like, oh, like that big store out on Hawthorne Boulevard in Portland that had all those different vendors at it. Yeah, I would spend this big warehouse place. I'd spend hours there just finding things and just, and I can't believe double as much time. And as I do these videos, I'm confronting I'm face to face with kind of my own mortality and the mission. It's like, how do I keep the spirit of 70s love alive here in the 21st century now that double the time has passed from the 70s as between then and my own youth, when it seemed like an alternate, because the different vantage point I have now is that now I know what 20 years feels like as an adult, whereas I couldn't really express that kind of feeling. I couldn't really feel that at age when I was in my early to mid 20s. 20 years seemed like 100 years to me at that age. It seemed like going back to the dawn of time before I could even remember. And now I know what 20 years can go by like that when you're an adult throughout it all. But yeah, and so now keeping 70s, keeping romanticized, kind of misty-eyed love and passion for the 70s alive in the 21st century, knowing that today there just might be some young people in their early 20s who feel the same way about the late 90s that I did about the 70s back in the late 90s. And I don't want to spoil it for them. Nah, I'm just going to stay away from that. And 70s, early 80s, forever for this here fellow. Anyway, this same year, Annie Haslam, in addition to this, oh God, this was just a packed year for Annie Haslam. She also did her first solo album, Annie in Wonderland, produced by Roy Wood, her then flame. Roy Wood had his way with the ladies back in the 70s. Before her, he had been with Lindsay DePaul for a time, and had also been with this TV presenter, Ashley Broughton, I think was her name. I don't know much about her. That was more of a TV English TV thing. But and she also Renaissance had an album out that year, Novella, perhaps their grandest album yet. Big orchestral, lavish, with arguably their greatest song ever, Touching Once Is So Hard to Keep, which I'll be doing one of these days soon. And heck, And the more the merrier, as if to say the more the merrier, the original Renaissance, she has, this is only relayed to her by extension, the original Renaissance with Jane Ralph, they reconvened that year, this 77 as well, for 2 albums as Illusion, named after the 1971 Renaissance album named Illusion. So just a jam-packed year for all these people. And of course, Anthony Phillips put out his first solo album 7 years after having left Genesis, re-emerged with The Geese and the Ghost, and before the year was over, recorded his second solo album, released later that same year. Heck, he already had his first private parts and pieces in the can. I mean, all these people were just so active. And of course, Meatloaf, later that year, would go on to release one of the biggest selling albums of all time, using some of the elements that are on this album, and many others too. I mean, because Meatloaf, of course, is like one of the most popular purveyors of lavishness and extravagance in rock. And I must draw attention to one moment in the song that we heard. I just love, toward the final third of that song, when Annie Haslam is going into those high voice, I can't go up into that like I might have been able to have imitated my 20s, but you know, when she's saying, I'm reaching out back home to the people I love that I'll never see again, but I'll never forget you. You're not forgotten. I'm reaching out to try and communicate to you as me and the people I'm with embark on the new frontier to experience life, you know, in intergalactic flight. Yeah. Oh my God, 1977 forever. Just take me back there and let me live 77 on constant repeat forever. If I have another 40 years ahead of me, let me just spend all of them in let me just spend them all in 1977. For more Rubies and Sapphires from the Intergalactic Touring Band album, see the directory of albums by English artists linked in the description below. And then from there, go on to the A to see Annie Haslam's solo album, and the R to see the Renaissance catalog, Ruby Mine, Sapphire Mine, many great rich reds and purples from 1969 to 1983 and beyond. And then go to the I page, or heck, on the same pages on the same directory pages as Intergalactic Touring Band, you can also see the Illusion albums. Yeah. Like and subscribe, follow me on social media, and comment if there is any observations you have about this song, its beauty, the beauty of Annie Haslam's voice, the arrangements, the chordal progressions, observations you might have about the plot line, memories you have about this album, how much you love it, how much it's meant to you in your life, or just your observations on just how wonderful it was to see all these people on the same album when they were all doing so many other great things at the same time, almost like a greatness overload. Until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most ear-traveled trimaximalist, signing off.